Once upon a time, a boundary was built. They called it a border, a way to control what moves where and how. We let the miles separate us, forgot how to find each other. And to this day, we have a habit of keeping problems at arm's length. And our willingness to get uncomfortably close, to be wrong out loud and keep pushing, to grapple our own demons in public, to love the world so hard, we start to remember how close we actually are.
Welcome, entrepreneurs and artists and activists and investors and scholars and innovators and resistors. Welcome to Proximity.
I invite you all to get proximate to the poor, the excluded. There is something waiting for you there, and you will learn more. You will get more than you give. There is power in proximity.
We cannot be complacent. When we see a moment, turn it into something formidable.
Climate is already affecting every single living being on this planet, whether we are aware of it or not. And that woman in Bangladesh or in the Sahel, how is she not my sister?
With proximity constantly increasing now and in the future, to be able to live peacefully without military conflict between us and people with whom we have an honest difference of agreement, or who look different, or who worship different. That's a big question we face.
I am not a statistic. My people are not statistics. My problems are your problems.
The middle ground is not the innocent victim. It is a passive perpetrator within the rise of populist movements on the left and on the right.
What would due diligence look like on Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks? Like, what would have funders asked to see? What would the metrics have been? If our current funding norms continue to shape the way we do our work, what is possible around fundamental change?
There are tens, hundreds of millions of people in Africa that are reputable, hardworking, and they just want to be part of the economic system.
As we are telling people to come forward, we also have to think carefully about what are we asking people to come forward to.
When I think about the question of media and equality, you have to understand that media actually tells us our values.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Ready. Information. Power. Our strength.
Unity.
Agbajowo.
Lafisoya.
Lafisoya.
Agbajowo.
Thank you.
The way to face the challenges and crises that test us is not by erecting barriers, but by drawing upon our creativity and our compassion. We can see each other as fellow humans, each with much to give. If we disavow what divides us, if we explore and discover what connects us.
I believe that to whom much is given, much is required. And I was raised to give a damn. We are all here because we have been given much and we are ready to do what is required.
This is the 21st century. No one should have to strike a match for light. No one should have to see their income disappear due to drought. And no one should have to kill themselves while they cook a meal.
The values of public service have everything in the world to offer a technology industry whose motto has been move fast and break things. But now it's time to come together and build things. It's been said that government is just what we do together. It's also what we build together, and it is high time that we rebuilt it to work for everyone.
We need the passion and the creativity of all, particularly those who live in poverty, to meet the challenge of building a world that's actually truly inclusive. You know, as a society, we have to stop confusing between intellectual poverty and financial poverty.
Imagine a world without rape, without sexual harassment, without assault, where we could wear what we wanted, walk where we wanted, smile when we wanted, trust who we wanted, love who we wanted.
We believe, like many of you in this room, that those who feed us should not go hungry themselves. We believe that Aminata and her friends are going to change the world. This one is for the girls. Thank you.
Everyone is proximate. You're always near to other people, either through social media or through instant travel or quick communications. So there's much more of a melding of people's hopes and beliefs and dreams and fears, and we need to take advantage of that and not let it be working against us. So whenever we possibly can, let's reach out to other people who are different and treat them with respect and also treat them as equals to us.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Stephan Chambers.
Good morning, hello again, and welcome again. That was the week that was. That was the week that featured more of us than ever before, more events in parallel than ever before. A walk to freedom, a call to link arms. That was the week that was grey and rainy out there. And that was the week that it was incredibly warm and sunny in here. It was a week that celebrated, analyzed, and agreed and dissented. It was a week of joy and love. That was the 2018 Skoll World Forum. It will live with me forever as a very special week. We missed Jeff, and we sent him love and wished him speedy recovery. We said farewell to Sally, but we didn't say goodbye. We welcomed 6 new awardees with their energy and creativity and commitment. We supported each other with hugs and ideas and introductions. We did hard and serious work. And we did hard and serious partying. Well, at least you did, I didn't. Proximity touched everything. It touched the extraordinary new dimensions in Testimony project, bringing Pinchas Guta's life to the room. It touched the co-creation of stories, stories with and not stories about. It touched all our attempts to close gaps and bridge distance. Tashka Yawanama's commitment to proximity took a week of journey time from the Amazon to New York. Tashka, I'm so pleased you did. And I learnt from you all again this week. Not just from the obvious things, your warmth, your energy, your creativity, but from your commitment to each other and to this movement. I kept hearing people say, I come here to recharge. I look forward to this week to make me hopeful. This week restores my optimism. It's lonely what I do, and this week makes me feel less lonely. This week makes all my neurons fire. Is that a wig? I heard a man say to Brian Stevenson when they met from a wheelchair at the back of this theatre, "You make me feel less disabled." And you'll all have your special Skoll moments, small nuggets of energy that'll change how you are and how you do what you do for another year. Here are some of the favorite nuggets of mine, and if you said one of these things, you know who you are. It's also about joy. We are entrepreneurs. The rest are antisocial entrepreneurs. It starts when you say we. There is a market for compassion. Did tech move too fast and break too much? The world is at a reckoning. Don't be a bystander. Let our job be one of listening. Local people are thinking, I don't care what you know until I know that you care. There is an alternative to there is no alternative. I could go on, but that's why we have archived streaming at the forum, to stop me going on. So, you heard first about Ted's audacious project on Wednesday. It's my very great pleasure now to introduce a short film about it. Enjoy.
It's time to do something big. It's time to do something bold.
To have a bold idea, bigger than anyone is comfortable with.
And I've worked my whole career for a moment like this.
Do you think we can? Well, yeah, if we really, really want to, yes, we can.
This is the power of major philanthropy. This really works.
Hello, Skoll. Hello, heroes. This evening, Anna and I want to share with you a dream.
Well, change is driven by people that are utterly devoted to a cause that they're passionate about. We call them social entrepreneurs. They're inspirers, persuaders, change makers, and they are heroes.
We won't be investing in shares to make money. We will be investing in dreams to make change. This right now is the official start of the Audacious Project.
In the next 4 years, Last Mile Health and Living Goods will deploy 50,000 digitally empowered community health workers to serve 34 million people across 6 countries in West and East Africa. If our dreams don't scare us, then they're not big enough.
The Bail Project, by bailing out 160,000 people over the next 5 years, will become one of the largest non-governmental decarcerations of Americans in history.
There are countless undiscovered species in deep waters, and life in the Twilight Zone is intertwined with Earth's climate. Decisions we collectively make over the next decade will affect what the ocean looks like for centuries to come.
Now, many of you may know us. We are the co-founders of Girl Trek, the largest health organization for Black women in America.
We have an audacious plan to scale our intervention. 1,000 organizers is not enough. Girl Trek is going to create the next citizenship school.
We are going to launch a rocket. And on that rocket will be a satellite, and that satellite will collect data about pollution that is warming the planet.
We believe that we can eliminate trachoma in 12 African countries. We would be on the home straight to eliminate this disease from the whole world.
Last year, I'm proud to say that One Acre Fund farmers planted 8 million surviving trees. We estimate that last year's planting alone will eventually generate at least $50 million in asset value for the families we serve, while also improving our environment. The choice is ours. We are what we spend. Let us choose who we want to be. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Chief Executive of Doc Society, Jess Search.
The time has come, the walrus said, to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, of why the sea is boiling hot and whether pigs have wings. Good morning. That video, the launch of the Audacious project at the TED conference in Vancouver yesterday. And congratulations to the Skoll grantees, Last Mile Health and the Living Goods, who are amongst the awardees in this first round. We had to share them with the TED conference this year. But their work reminds us that we're going to need both proximity and audacity if we're going to solve global problems and make pigs fly. Alice in Wonderland, that I just recited for you, was written in 1865 by Lewis Carroll, right here in Oxford. And that reminds me that whilst we seek proximity with those who are geographically far from us, we should never ignore what is right here under our noses. And I felt that this forum couldn't pass without an acknowledgement from a British citizen that there has been a clear rise in homelessness in this city in the last 12 months since we were here. Last night, young people were sleeping rough, including right outside this very theatre. It's not right. And for those of us inside this theatre, we only have less than 1 hour left together. I know. We better make the most of it. Our next and final 3 speakers have some pretty big ideas. Ideas for how to travel to the future faster, some metaphorically and some quite literally. SpaceX describes itself as a company that designs, manufactures, and launches advanced rockets and spacecraft. It was founded in 2002 to revolutionize space technology with the ultimate goal of enabling people to live on other planets. Gwynne Shotwell joined the company in 2002 and is now president. Prior to that, she spent 10 years at the Aerospace Corporation. She's authored dozens of papers on subjects including, and I have to quote, standardizing spacecraft payload interfaces, conceptual small spacecraft design, infrared signature target modeling, shuttle integration, and re-entry vehicle operational risks. Gwynne has spent her career looking at the stars, and so I thought it was appropriate to have a quick look at her stars this morning. She's a Sagittarius, and her horoscope offers this handy advice for today. A gathering could open the door to new friendships, interesting discussions, and other group activities you may enjoy. The only downside is it could involve mental overload. You might learn so much today that you can't keep track of it all. Skoll World Forum, I think we're about to get mental overload. Please give a massive welcome to Gwynne.
Good morning. I'm so pleased to be here. And I'm so pleased to be able to share with you some of the experiences and the activities that we're doing at SpaceX. I do believe that what we're doing at SpaceX will bring proximity to the globe.
It's a god-awful small affair to the girl with the mousy hair, but her mummy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go, but her friend is nowhere to be seen. Now she walks through her sunken dream to the seat with the clearest view, and she's hooked to the silver screen. But the film is a sad thing for she's lived it 10 times or more. She could spit in the eyes of fools if they ask her to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. It's the freakiest show. Take a look at the low man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know who's in the best-selling show. Is there life on Mars?
I still get chills when I see our videos. They're fantastic. And one of the reasons why we make these videos is to kind of bring back people's looking towards the stars and being excited about space and space exploration again. For those of you that don't know about SpaceX, we are a small company solely devoted to the concept of building space transportation systems that will ultimately take people to other planets. We've got our initial sites on Mars, but there's plenty of places to visit after that. We're focused on rapid innovation, and we actually have almost 7,000 people right now, over $10 billion worth of revenue on the books, and we've successfully flown the Falcon 9 and the Falcon Heavy launch vehicle 52 times. We've taken the Dragon spaceship to the International Space Station successfully 14 times. And we're doing this not necessarily to make money. In fact, we joke that the easiest way to create a small fortune in the aerospace industry is to start with a large one. But what we are focused on doing is lifting people's eyes to the skies, thinking about space exploration again, and harnessing public imagination. The driving principles, and these are relevant for any entrepreneur, set audacious goals. And by the way, we were talking about audacious goals, and I'm so glad that this week the Audacious Project was announced as well. It's one of the founding kind of words that we use at SpaceX, is audacious. Think big. Even if you fall short, you probably have done something extraordinary. We have a relentless focus on driving innovation and improving every cycle. You achieve that by proximity and by feedback, instantaneous feedback. We have a building block approach to what we're doing. We started with a small launch vehicle, little Falcon 1, flew it a couple of times, went to a bigger vehicle, Falcon 9, glued 3 of those Falcon 9s together to form the Falcon Heavy, which you saw in the video, first thing. And then our next project on the launch vehicle side will be the big Falcon rocket and the big Falcon spaceship. And that will be the vehicle that ultimately transports people beyond Earth. Our people are our greatest resources, for sure. We walk that talk. It's not just a saying we make. We could never do what we did without the workforce that we have. They are extraordinary people, and they work hard every day, very similar to you all here in the audience. Wanted to chat or give you a tiny bit of background on the company. I think it's relevant for entrepreneurialism. We started in 2002, and we ended 2002 with about 14 employees, actually exactly 14 employees. I was the 11th employee at SpaceX, actually, in 2002. This is my 16th year at this extraordinary company. And since 2002, what have we achieved? We've launched 52 times. We will, this year, if we maintain our manifest, we will have launched as many vehicles as our competitors who have been in the business for many dozens of years longer than us. So we've launched 52 times. We've landed many times as well, and that's the key piece of technology that's necessary in order to look to the stars and take people to other planets, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Rapid operational reuse. Imagine if rockets were more like, or imagine if airplanes were like rockets today. Right now, rockets are used once. You spend millions of dollars building this capability, and after its mission, you toss it, or it tosses itself into the ocean. I think that's a bad steward element of the environment. So not only do we want to reuse this capability so that you can be more like an aircraft. Think about going from London to Los Angeles. If that aircraft was only used once, not many of us would fly, and proximity would have a very different perspective. We'd have a very different perspective on proximity. So we must be able to make rockets reusable, and that's fundamentally what we're doing at SpaceX and achieving most recently. I'm going to show you a video of how you do achieve great things. You start with failure. So I want to give you a slightly different perspective of landing a rocket. Instead of being third person, I want you to be first person. So imagine yourself on the top of this booster, and you're coming home. This is slightly sped up, but not that much sped up. So hopefully you will all experience that. And I'm going to do another beauty shot of the brother and sister boosters landing side by side after that that extraordinary Falcon Heavy launch in February. Yay! So we focused on the rocket piece, and I do want to talk a little bit about the crew cabin piece. We are working with NASA. We were one of the two companies that were blessed to have been given the very difficult but critical job of taking people back to space. So we are working diligently on upgrading the Dragon cargo ship, which currently takes supplies and food to the International Space Station. We're upgrading that to be able to carry astronauts again, which is an extraordinary program. We're making great progress. We should have a vehicle capable of taking people to the ISS later this year, and we will demonstrate that in an autonomous mode this year as well. Very exciting program. So we've got Falcon 9, we've got Falcon Heavy, we have Dragon. Now we're going to move on to the next vehicle, and that vehicle is incredibly exciting. That will be the ship that takes people to Mars. But there's also some other things that that vehicle can do that will help more people on this planet gain proximity. I am particularly excited about that capability rather than going to Mars. I can visit my customers overseas in Dubai, in Riyadh, in London, and get home in time to make dinner, which I also love doing, by the way. So you take that spaceship, you leverage it to really change the possibilities and the transportation here on Earth, and then you can also leverage that ship to take people to Mars, to explore, to go beyond where we've gone before. And this is just a quick kind of summary of kind of a thought piece on what early settlement on Mars could look like. So hopefully you've learned a little bit about SpaceX, about what we're trying to do, and the possibilities that are enabled with thinking about space transportation in a completely different way, as well as leveraging that to bring people closer together here on Earth. Thanks very much for your time this morning. Yay!
Amazing.
Thank you.
So I have a real beginner's question. I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but I read that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. So I'm just wondering, is the plan to send the men home to Mars and we're going to go to Venus? Because I think it's a lot closer, right, Venus? So is that the plan?
Venus is a little closer, but it's toxic.
Just good to clear that up. I have a more serious question for you. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Firefly.
And I have to ask you about climate change. It's been a big theme for our forum this year. And obviously, Elon's been very outspoken in naming climate change as a great threat of this century. And of course, he took a stance in withdrawing from Trump's advisory committee once the Paris Agreement was kind of questioned. So thank you for your organization's leadership on that. And I was kind of curious if you have other projects or things in mind, other than the sustainability of the rockets, which you kind of spoke to, which kind of guides what you're doing, thinking about climate change.
Well, there's no question, Elon doesn't have companies that aren't focused on making our planet better, and part of that has to be focused on what you're doing to the environment.
That little fella.
Yeah, exactly, and our children. There's a number of things that we're doing. We're moving away from the carbon-based fuel that we're using right now on Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy to a LOX methane system. We're also ensuring that we have enough capability of our vehicles so that not only do we not want to pollute the planet by trashing the vehicles and dumping them in the ocean, but that we're bringing them back and reusing them. And then when they're done, they become monuments, actually. There'll be monuments galore all over the planet of the rocket ships. So cleaner propellants and ensuring that we're not just dumping all that metal.
Thank you. And I also have to commend you on the leadership that your organization also took over the recent revelations around data and privacy. SpaceX deleted its Facebook page, am I right? Was that a difficult decision? Because, I mean, I just have to commend you for kind of stepping forward and making a statement on the importance of protecting, democracy and elections.
There are a lot of difficult decisions. I don't think that was one particularly difficult decision to do.
Gwynne, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. So yesterday at the excellent Women and Climate Change session, I was offered another truth and correction moment. A community organizer from northern Kenya said to me that in the opening plenary, when I had celebrated the successes of women in the last 12 months, that I was celebrating drops in the ocean. And she said that rural women, like those in her community, were still waiting for inclusion in decision-making. And she's right. And it made me reflect that proximity cannot just be a theme for this year's Skoll World Forum. It must remain a guiding principle for every year of this work. Proximity is going to be a journey, and we have only just begun. But I offer no apology for celebrating drops in the ocean, particularly when those drops are as beautiful and inspiring as Agnes herself, and I think we're going to see a picture of her. So if she's here, thank you, Agnes, for the opportunity for some truth and correction and to focus our minds on the work still to be achieved. And on that note, our next speaker is on a mission to develop the African leaders of the future. He wants to create the next generation of ethical and entrepreneurial Africans, those that can build their own organizations and then contribute and build their own countries. Fred Swaniker was born in Ghana, but he has lived and worked in over 10 African countries. He's been already recognized as a young global leader by the World Economic Forum. And he's here today to tell us about his plans for the African Leadership University. And I should also mention that he is a Libra. Please welcome Fred.
By the end of this century, 40% of the world's population will be African. But even more alarming to me is the fact that by 2035, just 17 years from now, Africa will have the largest workforce in the world. 1 billion people, larger than China's and larger than India's workforce. Now, 17 years seems very far away, but we're here today to talk about the proximate future, what's happening just around the corner. So let me put those 17 years for you in another way. We have 6,205 days until we reach the largest workforce in the world. And since January, that number has already dropped. 6,205 days is the number of days we had at the beginning of the year. We're now sitting at 6,105 days. And tomorrow, we'll have 6,104. The clock is ticking. Imagine all those people without education, infrastructure, healthcare, jobs, food, and security. We're sitting at the cusp of a global humanitarian crisis of unprecedented scale. We cannot build enough walls, Mr. Trump, to stop 40% of the world's population from seeking better opportunities elsewhere. They're coming. They will be very proximate. So we're in real trouble. Or are we? Could this looming population boom also be one of the greatest sources of global prosperity that will define this century? Because amongst this next billion is the next Elon Musk. Yes, the founder of SpaceX, the company that you just heard of, is an African. Although you couldn't tell it because he's now got this very fancy American accent. But he left South Africa when he was 17 to move to Canada, and he began this journey that we all heard about just now. Or the next Dr. Olenu, the Ghanaian scientist from NASA, who led the team that designed the Mars rover robot that went to the Red Planet. What's up with all these Africans and Mars? Or the next Spencer Horn, a young South African who graduated from one of my institutions, the African Leadership Academy, and is now building airships to transport cargo across Africa. Or the next Belinda Munemo, another graduate from the African Leadership Academy, who's building a chain of schools, already educating 500 children, and employs 60 people. And she's only 28. The next Graça Machel, who was on the stage a few years ago and received an award as one of the global icons, treasures as they call them. The next Kofi Annan. The next Nelson Mandela. The next Desmond Tutu. The next Dr. Chris Barnard, the South African who did the first heart transplant. Yes, today you can get a heart transplant because of a South African. The next Danai Gurira, my college classmate, who just recently wowed audiences in the global blockbuster movie Black Panther. Or her co-star, Lupita Nyong'o, Oscar winner. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, globally renowned author. The next Chiwetel Ejiofor, Oscar-nominated actor. The next Clive Calder, the South African musical genius who discovered Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, NSYNC, and A Tribe Called Quest, and so many other global entertainers that, can I get some water? Here's water. That provide the soundtrack to our lives. Or the next Wangari Maathai, Nobel Prize-winning environmentalist. The point is this: Africa has some of the world's top talent. It just needs to be unlocked. The average age of an African is 19.5, whereas the average age of a German or a Japanese is 46. So with this youthful energy could therefore unleash a massive source of innovation and prosperity, not just for Africa, but for the entire world, as we've just heard from what Gwen shared about what another young African has built with SpaceX. Now, what will determine the future between the first doomsday scenario I painted and this much more exciting alternative is one thing: education. The quest for an alternative global future has been driving me and my colleagues at the African Leadership Group for the last 14 years. We are on a mission to unlock Africa's treasure trove of talent before it is too late. We first started doing this with a high school in South Africa called the African Leadership Academy, where we'd select the most outstanding young people from every country in Africa, develop them as leaders and entrepreneurs, and then send them off to top universities around the world. But after several years of sending them off to universities in the US, and after seeing the tremendous need for education in Africa, we thought we needed to scale this up and to do it at the university level. But to launch any university with decent quality takes about maybe 300 years, right? And it takes billions of dollars and thousands of professors. The only problem is we don't have 300 years. We have 6,000 days. We don't have billions of dollars. We have almost no money. We also don't have hundreds of thousands of qualified professors. So this task is as impossible as it must have seemed in 1961, when US President John F. Kennedy set the goal of putting a man on the moon in less than 10 years.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Or as impossible as it seemed when Gwynne and Elon Musk set out on their journey to start SpaceX and to put people on Mars. So educating hundreds of millions of Africans in just 6,000 days amounts to nothing short of a moonshot for education. A moonshot has three characteristics. First, the problem needs to be so large that solving it seems impossible. Second, the problem must require a radical approach. You have to start over. You can't use conventional methods. You need completely unconventional methods. And third, the approach must depend on some breakthrough in technology. So today, I want to share with you the unconventional radical approach that I believe we need in order to solve the global challenge at hand. First is I believe that the learning system that we need must depend not on having phenomenal teachers, but on fantastic students. I learned this from an experiment that we did at the African Leadership Academy. We were teaching a class, a computer science class, but it wasn't going so well. So we decided after a while to scrap the class. But the students came to us and said, you know, we really want to do computer science. So we said, well, what do you want us to do? We don't have a teacher. But we decided to do an experiment. We said, we'll have you take an online class. But we didn't believe that online classes alone would be as powerful because people drop out and so forth. Learning is a social activity at the end of the day. So we said, okay, you come together, but you have to take this class as a team. So these students would get together 3 times a week, and they'd watch these lectures. And then when they got to a point where they were confused, they would pause it. And the ones who understood what was going on would explain to the others that didn't. And soon, these students were learning how to code without a single teacher in the classroom. So 6 months into the school year, I was sitting with one of the students at the academy, and I said, what are your favorite classes this year? And she says, my computer science class. I said, how is that possible? There's no teacher in the class. She says, yes, I'm learning more from that class and enjoying than any of our classes. So I said, how did you rate the class last year with the teacher? 6 out of 10. How did you rate the class this year without a teacher? 9.5 out of 10. That blew me away. We were able to offer a better class at 0 cost. And this girl graduated from the academy, went to Stanford to do computer science. Indeed. So I realized I'd been thinking about the problem the wrong way. Instead of designing a system around a scarce resource, teachers, we need to design the system around an abundant resource, which is students, and let them learn by themselves using technology that exists today. They have access to all the information in the world now. And let them teach each other in peers. Haven't you noticed that every time you have to explain something to someone else, it makes you learn it a lot better yourself? And so that was the big insight that I got, that you have to design this system around students, an abundant resource, and not a scarce resource. The second thing that I believe this learning system must have is that its aim, its ultimate purpose, should not be to teach students facts and figures, but rather to teach them how to think and how to solve problems, to create problem solvers. How many of you think back to your college days? Think back to what you actually studied in college. Just take a moment to think about what you studied in college, if you remember. Now, I'd like to see a show of hands. How many of you are actually doing something today that is exactly related to what you studied in college? See about maybe 15, 20 people. It's never more than 10% whenever I ask this question in the audience. So we need to rather be teaching people how to solve problems. Because when you become problem solvers, critical thinkers, and not facts and figures, you can then come up with innovative solutions. And then you can become entrepreneurs who will create the jobs for this 1 billion that we need. So one of the things we really believe is that the education of the future is not about facts and figures, especially when we think about what's happening with artificial intelligence and automation. A lot of things that we learn quickly become forgotten and will be done by machines. So we need to learn how to solve problems above everything else and to apply those in entrepreneurial ways to then create the jobs that this billion will need. And finally, this education model must cost close to zero because we don't have any money in Africa. So let me show you an example of this educational model at work.
Arduino is a microcontroller. So what that means is it's this tiny computer that we can use to make it do anything for us in the real world. So for instance, I could take a bulb, connect it to my Arduino, connect that Arduino gadget to my computer, and then write code on the computer and tell my bulb, please light 1 time every 3 seconds. My bulb will now be lighting, dip, 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 and that's a functionality that you would not be able to get if you had just a battery and a bulb. But with an Arduino, you're able to now control things. You're able to control the physical world using code, which is pretty cool.
Arduino was first introduced to us in the third week of school. However, it was like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and I hadn't felt like I had done something significant, and so I went to my facilitator, Zino, and I told him I want to build something. I want to do something with what I'm learning. He mentioned we have a drone that uses Arduino, and he's like, I can assemble it and then fly it. And I was like, okay, yeah.
So Wango is my friend, and she knows I have this thing for programming, and I equally like Arduino. And so she came up to me and she said, Kathy, I have this quadcopter that we can program and tell to do things. You know, we can teach it how to do many things. And so that completely fascinated me, and I was on board from the moment she told me. So we found ourselves in a room, you know, fixing up everything and reading from a book, instructions back to back.
We had to assemble the drone. So it came in pieces, lots and lots of pieces. And then there are many parts, and we had to put the parts together. So there were like motors for the copter, and then it has a control board, which they call the flight board. And then what you connect to that is the Arduino, which you now connect to the computer so you can code.
Well, the fact that there was nothing, it was just a flow of pieces, and now you're able to bring it together and you see it fly. You know, something you created is now flying.
There's that relief, yeah. You feel like, yes, after all this we've gone through, we've actually made it work.
By doing this, the one thing for me personally that I gained was confidence. You know, to hear that you built a quadcopter and you assembled microcontrollers, it sounds crazy, but then once you do it and once you're able to understand how the process goes, it automatically builds your confidence, and you're like, wait a minute. So this is what they're usually talking about. It's not that big of a deal, and it's not that hard at all. Anyone could do it.
I shared with you the 3 principles that I believe this education that we need to rapidly scale up people in Africa is going to need. First, it must be student-centered. You saw how that worked. That the faculty were not the ones telling the students how to build that drone. their own initiative, their own energy, their own grit. That's what they used. And this comes from a culture. And the nice thing about culture is that it's free. The second thing, we said is about solving problems. If that isn't problem solving, figuring out how to build one of the most sophisticated technologies by themselves. Third, I said it needs to cost close to zero. So that education that you saw, and I can tell you that those girls can compete with the best in the world, costs today as little as $500 per year. It doesn't cost $60,000 like it costs to go to MIT or Stanford and so forth. $500 a year. And we're on a journey to take that cost down to zero, which by this September we hope to have done. And you might be wondering, and our plans are to scale this to educate 1 million youth at a time. So we can create several million before the 6,000 days are over. Yet, we don't need any donor funding to do this. You might be wondering, how is this possible? We figured out a model where we raise funds from investors to finance the student's education. It's called an income share arrangement. And when the student graduates, they pay back a share of their income back to the investors. So what this means is that we're not saddling our students with debt. We're investing in them. And if they're successful and they get a job, then they pay a share of their income. If they're unemployed, then there's nothing for them to pay. Every now and then, you'll get an Elon Musk, and you get a share of the income. And that's how we're financing the system. So in conclusion, today we meet at Oxford, one of the most incredible universities in the world. It opened its doors 1,000 years ago, 1096. Since then, billions of dollars have been spent to produce hundreds of thousands of graduates. Today, it costs $50,000 to go to Oxford. So to go for a 3-year degree here would be $150,000. So if we were to educate just 10 million, let's just pick 10 million Africans, using Oxford's model, it would cost us $1.5 trillion and take 1,000 years, which we don't have. We have 6,000 days. And we've shown that by thinking differently, we can get Africans an Oxford quality education for almost zero upfront cost from the student in a sustainable market-based way. The problem can be cracked, but we don't have time. We need a radical, unconventional solutions like this, and we need to do this at the primary school level, at the secondary school level, at vocational schools. They've got to focus on being student-driven, making sure that people are becoming problem solvers and entrepreneurs, and extremely low cost. We also need entire new categories of skill development that don't even fit in a box today. For example, should we even be using the term universities? Should we maybe be creating a new category of learning systems, like a skills accelerator or leadership accelerator, that give people an initial dose of learning in maybe 6 to 12 months, get them straight out into work, and then work with them through lifelong learning and give them doses of education and skills just in time as they need. Right now, we have just-in-case education. We teach you all these facts and figures just in case they become useful. This reminds me of a time when we had 17 years to solve another problem in Africa. It was in 2001, and at that time, less than 2 million people in Africa had access to telephone lines. And when they did, the lines were horribly, of terrible quality and ridiculously expensive. But then the mobile phone came along. Africa quickly abandoned any plans to build landlines. And today, just 17 years later, over 500 million people have access to telephones. And a Maasai woman can make a telephone call to her cousin in New York with incredible clarity for very low cost. We need to apply that same thinking today in order to unlock Africa's immense talent. We need a moonshot for education in Africa. Now, Gwynne just shared about their plans to take humanity to Mars. And that's a wonderful vision. But you know, I'm not planning to go to Mars. When I travel in planes, I hate turbulence. So I can't imagine the turbulence of going to Mars. I intend to be here 6,000 days from now on the continent, on this planet. And so this mission to develop 1 billion people and to convert them into problem solvers, for me, it's not about helping Africa. It's not about saving Africa. It's about saving the world so that we don't have to go to Mars. It's about taking these 1 billion brains and converting them into a powerful energy of innovation, entrepreneurship, to drive global prosperity and to solve many of the problems that we're seeing in the world today. It reminds me of the movie Black Panther, where they talked about vibranium, this incredible energy source that's in Africa. It lies in our youth. And we have an incredible opportunity to ensure that the next 6,000 days is an era of unprecedented prosperity and innovation so that we don't all have to go to Mars. Thank you.
This is such an important message, and how wonderful that you're delivering it here in Oxford, as you say, the home of one of our elitist organizations, educational organizations. Absolutely loved everything that you had to say, and I have to ask, are you going to be able to devote a sliver of your time to helping Western, countries to realize that they shouldn't just let you leapfrog us, but actually we need to really question the way we're running education and universities in our countries too? Have you been approached by people asking?
Well, I mean, I think that's the whole point of this, is that many of the solutions to the world's problems actually lie in Africa. Yeah. And what we've come up with is a global innovation in education. It's not just an African innovation. I mean, if we can produce people who can compete with the best in the world for almost zero cost, this is an innovation. I mean, how many of you are paying tuition for your students, right, for your children right now? 60,000, hundreds of thousands, exactly, goodness gracious, right? Yeah. So yes, this is something that we think needs to go global. Just like when the mobile phone was invented in Africa, most of the innovations that we see in mobile technology today came out of Africa. For example, pay as you go, or mobile money, Apple Pay, all those things that we're using now, it was first done in Africa with M-Pesa. So I think that, and if we think about climate change, Elon Musk, yes, he's a great innovator, but there's thousands of them on the continent. They're just waiting for an opportunity to be converted.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
I have to just quickly ask you about your own experience, because you went to college in Minnesota, and I wonder what that was like. It must have been really cold.
It was, McAllister.
And maybe there weren't too many other Ghanaians there. I'm just wondering, was this the beginning of this journey? Was that in an experience where you were thinking, what the heck am I doing here?
Well, I loved my time. I was at McAllister College in Minnesota. It was a fantastic place to go. Any McAllister people? I was one of there were many other talented young people that I left behind when I had the opportunity to go to McAllister. So one of the things that I vowed when I went there was that I would one day create an opportunity for millions of young people to be able to get that.
Well, we believe in you. Amazing. Thank you so much, Fred. Okay, it's the last leg. Our final speaker focuses on human irrationality and uses science to identify the behavioral tweaks which can lead to the biggest impacts. He is a professor of psychology and behavioral economics at Duke University and the founder of the Center for Advanced Hindsight. Dan Ariely's best-selling books include Irrationally Yours and Predictably Irrational. Now, I don't even think that I'm predictably irrational, but I have to just let you know, Dan, that we are both Taurians, and we both have a warning today to expect an awkward experience. Please give a rationally enthusiastic welcome to Dan Ariely.
Thank you. Good morning. So first of all, I should point out that the reason that I have half a beard is not because I lost a bet. It's because I was badly burned many years ago, so much of my body is covered with scars, including the right side of my face, in case you were wondering. So I want to talk a little bit about behavioral change today. And when it comes to behavioral change, we often think that the right thing to do is just to tell people what they should be doing, right? If somebody is not behaving in a way that we think we should, they probably just don't have the right information, so let's tell them what the right thing to do is, and then people would immediately go ahead and do that. Is this the case? Let's reflect a little bit about our own behaviors. So if you don't mind, I'll ask you a few questions. How many of you in the last month, and please be honest, how many of you in the last month have eaten more than you think you should? Just kind of a general statement, okay? How many of you in the last month have exercised less than you think you should? Okay. How many of you in the last month have at least once texted while driving? Please be honest. Okay. I know some of you just don't drive, so you say, oh. How many of you in the last month have at least once not washed your hands when you left the bathroom? It's interesting, right? You say, oh, yes, I text and drive, but I'm not willing to admit that I don't wash my hands. Two more questions. How many of you in the last month have not slept enough? Everybody? And last question. How many of you have ever had unplanned, unprotected sex? Wow, that's amazing. Very few. I'm impressed. Okay, so for most things, we realize that knowing what's the right thing to do is no remedy, is no guarantee that we'll actually go ahead and do it. And what that means is that when we think about behavioral change, we need to take different approaches. And what I want to do today is to kind of get you to think a little bit about social science and about experiments as a way to kind of get better foundations on how to get behavioral change. How do we get people to save, exercise, take their medication, care about the planet, and so on. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So let's start with example one. Imagine that we want people to save for an emergency, what's called rainy day. In this case, we're talking about some of the poorest people in the world. The experiment I'll tell you about we did in Kibera, a slum in Kenya. People live on, let's say, about $10 a week. And we want these very, very poor people to save a little bit. This is not for retirement, it's for a rainy day. And why do we care so much? Because the very poor have negative income shocks multiple times a year. And what happens when they have a negative income shock is they have no extra money. Imagine you're very poor, you live hand to mouth, you have no extra money. And one day, something bad happens. Maybe you have a goat, and your goat gives you 20% of your income, and one day the goat is sick, and maybe you are sick. Or maybe something happens, you have no extra income. You have no way to make up this gap, you borrow. In Kibera, you might be borrowing at 10% interest a week. And then let's say 4 weeks later, things improve. You yourself get healthy, the goat is healthy again, but now you're 4 weeks behind plus interest. Really hard to get out of it. So for the poor the world over, people who live hand to mouth, the moment something bad happens, things deteriorate. So we want people to have a little emergency fund. Now what would happen if we told people, please hold your regular wallet in your right pocket and hold your saving wallet in your left pocket, right? And just separate the money this way, what do you think would happen? They would spend the money. I mean, if you walk around, even Kibera, you have things to spend. You could buy more water, fruit. There's all kinds of things to buy. So the first principle of designing this system was to make not a wallet that is in your pocket, but to get a wallet that is easy to put money in and hard to get money out. Right? Easy in, hard out. Because if it's easy in, easy out, the money will come in and will go out. If it's easy in, hard out, that might get people to put money in, but not have an easy time getting it out. So we teamed up with M-Pesa, the payment company in Kenya that you all know, and we created a system where people could put money through M-Pesa, very easy through their cell phone, but every night M-Pesa moved the money to an investment bank. And now the money was an investment bank, and if you want to take it out, you had to take a bus, go to the city, go to the bank, fill a form, wait an hour, take a bus back. It could take you 4 or 5 hours. That's on purpose, right? Why? Because you want people to think about putting money in, but then when they get it out, to get it out only when it's a real emergency. You want people to have access to the money when it's a real emergency, but not have access to the money all the time. So that's the starting point, right? Easy in, hard out, and we gave it to lots and lots of people. And then we said, okay, on top of that, we probably need to give people extra motivation. Right? Like people are not that interested in savings. It's not as if you wake up in the morning and say to yourself, what can I do today to increase my savings? So we said, what other motivations can we give? So some people, we just gave them that system, easy in, hard out. Another group of people, we gave them the same system with a weekly text reminder that said, please try and save 100 shillings, about $1, this week, right? We just reminded them about it. Another group got the same reminder, but it was framed as if it came from their kids. It says, hi mom, hi dad, this is little Joseph, whatever the name of the kid was. We knew the name of their kids. Please save 100 shillings this week for the future of our family, right? Using a little bit of guilt. I'm Jewish. So using a little bit of guilt and reminder of the family. Another group got a 10% match. We said, if you save up to 100 shillings, we'll give you 10% match. Another group got a 20% match, right? More money. 2 other groups also got the match, but they got it together with loss aversion. What's loss aversion? In behavioral economics, we have the sense that gaining money is good, losing money is extra bad. In fact, it's twice as miserable to lose than the joy you get from winning. So if today you lost $1,000, you would be really, really miserable. If you gain $1,000, that will be happy, but the happiness will be about half the size of the misery. Now, if you think about somebody who's putting money in and getting more, they are in the gain frame. We said, how do you get people to feel that they are losing, right? So imagine that you're in the 10% condition, and you put 40 shillings in, you get 4 more at the end of the week. But you gave up 6, but you don't see it. So we said, what if we gave people the 10 shillings in the beginning of the week? Here is your full match. Put as much as you want. And now if you put 40, we leave 4 in and take 6 back. So financially, it's the same thing. But what it gives people is the sense of the money that they're giving up, right? Loss aversion. And then the final condition, we gave people a coin about this size, and we had number made on that coin. Like there were 24 numbers for the 24 weeks of the program. We said, please put that coin somewhere visible in your hut, and every week take a knife and scratch the number for that week. Week 1, I saved, I didn't save. Scratch it this way if you didn't save, this way if you saved. Now think about all of those methods. Nothing, the control condition. Text from kids, 10%, 20%, beginning of the week, end of the week, and the coin. Which one do you think worked the best? Which one do you think worked the best? Now, I'll ask you to vote. Not that your vote will change anything. That's like, but I want you to think carefully about what you think. What's your theory? What's your prediction? And also, please don't abstain. Like, have an opinion. Okay? So how many people think that the regular text worked the best? The regular text. Okay, nobody? Good, it didn't. How many of you think that the text worked at all? That in fact, compared to no text, texting people helped to some degree? Absolutely. It was very effective, just wasn't the best. How many of you think the text from the kids worked the best? Interesting. Usually it's people without kids that think this way. How many of you think that 10% at the end of the week worked the best? Okay, few. 20% at the end of the week. 10% in the beginning of the week. 20% in the beginning of the week. Okay. And how many people think the coin worked the best? Okay. So here's what happened. You give that system to people and people start saving even with no reminder, right? And that's a good thing, right? It basically says that people want self-control. It's kind of like your program that you think about, right? That people save up front for the future, right? So you give people a system with self-control and they already want it and start saving. A weekly reminder helped a lot, right? That's great. 10% at the end of the week helped some more. Financial incentives work. 20% at the end of the week, just like 10%. It turns out no difference whatsoever. 10% in the beginning of the week helps some more. Loss aversion works. 20% in the beginning of the week, just like 10%. But the biggest surprise of the, and kids were just like 10 and 20% in the beginning of the week, right? So if you think about having kids, they're worth about 20% plus loss aversion in terms of a motivational force. By the way, this is the amazing thing about kids, right? It's an amazing thing about kids to think that reminding people about kids has the power of 20% match plus loss aversion. It's amazing, right? And I think we don't use kids enough. And I don't mean in the child labor sense, but if you think about motivation, parents are often incredibly motivated about their kids. They represent the future. They represent kind of the better side of ourselves. And thinking about how to use that in persuasion, I think, is very important. But the biggest surprise of this study was the coin. The coin basically doubled savings compared to everything else. And I have to say, it surprised me. Now, you can come up with all kinds of theories about why the coin worked so well, but let me tell you how I came up with this coin. So I was in Soweto, a slum in South Africa, and I was sitting in a place that sells funeral insurance. And if you know South Africa, funerals in South Africa are very, very expensive. People spend sometimes a year or 2 years of income on funerals. It's their biggest celebration of their lifetimes, right? In the West, we have weddings, for example. In South Africa, it's funerals. You could kind of reason which one is more rational to do, but at least with funerals you have one in your lifetime. So I sit in this place, and they sell funeral insurance, and a father comes and he buys funeral insurance for a week, right? And just to be clear what it means that it would only be effective if he dies in the next week, right? It will only cover him. These are very poor people. They buy small amount of soap and small amount of insurance, and he buys funeral insurance for a week. And what he does then is he takes the certificate of the insurance and in a very ceremonious way gives it to his son. And as he does this, I think to myself, what is this father doing? Now, think about it in a general way. If you're a breadwinner for a family, and one day you decide to take money and direct it to long-term savings or insurance, what is the family going to see tonight? They're going to see less. If you're very poor, they'll see less tonight. There'll be less food on the table tonight. If they're not as poor, there'll be less this week. If they are not as poor, but there'll be something less in the near future. And if you're a breadwinner, when do you get positive reinforcement from your family? When do you do visible stuff? So all of a sudden, we do something that is invisible. And this father, what he was doing is he was saying, it's not that there's less, it's just different. And our coin was trying to do the same thing, right? We asked them to put the coin in somewhere public in the hut. By the way, people don't visit each other's huts. It's just for the family. But it was a coin was visible to basically symbol there's another economic activity happening in the family. It's just less on the table and more here, but it's not that it's invisible. By the way, when you start thinking about it this way, think about the nature of money for a second. 2,000 years ago, how did we save? Basically with goats, right? Goats, chickens, whatever. And the nice thing about saving with goats is you can come home from the office and you could see how many goats your neighbor has, right? And we could compete on who has more goats. We could compete on savings. But then what we did was we invented money, and then we invented digital money, and we took this incredible activity called saving and insurance, and we made it invisible. And then we took another activity called spending and made it extra visible. Now think about this competition. What do we care about? Things that are visible or things that are invisible, right? Of course, with that imbalance, we spend much more and worry less about our future. There was this very sad study recently that showed that when people win the lottery, their neighbors start spending more money. And in fact, some of them spend so much more money that they go bankrupt. Now, I know what you're thinking. These crazy Americans, they will do anything. No, these were Canadians. Good people. Okay. So if you think about this point, there's this asymmetry between spending and saving, visible and invisible, and the question is, how can you solve it? So of course, the coin is one approach. I'll give you two other examples. One example, in the US, there's a saving plan called 401k. You go to a new job, and they ask you how much of your salary do you want to divert to long-term saving, and the company can match a little bit of it. Imagine somebody who makes some money, and now they take a chunk of it and redirect it into long-term saving. That part is going to be invisible to the family. Maybe it will be visible in 30 years from now, but today it will be invisible. What did we do? We asked people to call their significant other and discuss it. The moment you call your significant other and discuss it, it's not visible forever. It's visible for the 3 minutes that you make that decision. And guess what? You discuss it, it's visible, people save more. Another example. Imagine that you take a group of kids on the day that they are born, and you randomly open to half of them college savings accounts. And you put $500 in these college savings accounts. And then you go to visit those kids on their 4th birthday, and what do we find? The kids with college savings accounts have higher cognitive and social skills. How can it be? Do 4-year-old kids know that they have college savings accounts? Of course not. Their parents know. Once a month, the parents get a statement that said, this little kid has a college savings account. And you look at your kid and you say, they're still in diaper, but they already have college savings accounts. And people treat their kids slightly differently, buy them a few more books, read to them a bit more. It's not big steps, but it's over a really long time. With this data, by the way, we recently, last year, we convinced the Israeli government to open college savings accounts for every kid from January 1st, 2017, on the day that they are born. And when we started this project, the people in the Ministry of Finance said, let's just reduce the cost of college. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing to have a kid that the parents and the kid think of themselves as going to college. Okay, so that's one example of how you want to think not just about the big picture, but the small details. And once you understand the true nature of money, you think about what's visible, what creates attention, what motivates people, what's friction, what's hard behavior. Now we can help people redirect in a much better way. Let me give you another example. We wanted to help people lose some weight. And we said, how do we start? And we said, when you walk around your house, when do you think about your health? What in your house reminds you about health? And the answer is almost nothing. The one exception is the bathroom scale. So we said, okay, let's think about the bathroom scale. By the way, how many of you have bathroom scales? Great. How many of you are looking forward to stepping on those things? Okay. So we said, okay, what do we know about the bathroom scale? The first thing we know, it's a really good thing to step on a scale every morning. Not so good to step in the evening. The reason, by the way, is not that we weigh more in the evening, we do, but what happens if you step on the scale in the morning, you remind yourself that you want to be healthy, and you eat a little bit less for breakfast. If you stand up on it in the evening, you just go to bed and you forget by the morning. Okay, so it's good to step up on the scale every day. The second thing, we know that weight fluctuates a lot. So we talked about loss aversion. In weight, it's gain aversion. You gain 2 pounds, lose 2 pounds. Imagine on average, you don't change your weight. You just up and down, up and down. High misery, slight happiness. High misery, slight happiness. What's the overall average effect? we're not looking forward to this experience. It's mostly bad news. And the third thing we know is that people expect changes to happen very fast. You go on a diet, and you step on this scale, and you say to yourself, I've been on a diet since yesterday morning. I've eaten nothing but salad, and I went for a run, and now look at my weight. Nothing has changed. In fact, it went up. Now what happened is that the behavior, the time where you start changing your behavior to the time it has an effect can be about 10 days to 2 weeks. But we don't have this intuition. So what do? We expect changes. So you've been on a diet for 4 days, you step on the scale and you went up by 0.7 of a pound. And you feel terrible. And then you take a day of break and you have Netflix and cheesecake and you step up on the scale the next day and now your weight goes down. It's confusing and demotivating. So what did we decide to do? We said, let's create a scale with no display. If stepping on the scale is a good thing, let's get people to step on the scale. And if they step on the scale in the morning, let's say, congratulations, you've done your job. And let's give people feedback on an app, but not in terms of pound. Let's do it in a 5-point feedback. You're just the same, nothing happened. You're just the same, congratulations. By the way, in medicine, in health, nothing happened is a really good news, right? You've aged for another year with nothing bad, congratulations, it's great news. And then we look at the trend. Here is what happened the last 3 weeks. Nothing happened, slightly worse, slightly better, much better. And it's a running average of the last 3 weeks. And we tested this system. We went to a call center. We took a group of about 1,000 low-income obese people. Some of them got the regular scale, and they gained a little bit of weight every month, about 0.3% of their body weight every month for 5 months. The people who got our scale lost 0.7% of their body weight every month for 5 months. Now think about how beautiful this is. You take this very simple social science approach and you look at daily things like money and wallets and scales, and if you just think about them the right way, you can change behavior. Let me just summarize with the following. If you look at the last, 300 years, a lot of what we have done as humanity is to handle our physical limitations. Think about this amazing auditorium. We have seats, we have stairs, we have lights, we have magnets. I mean, we need heat, we need cooling, and we have all of those things, and we've basically invested a tremendous amount of money and effort and motivation and energy and innovation to basically overcome our physical limitations. We can travel great distances very fast. We can do all kinds of amazing things. What about our cognitive? What about our mental limitations? What about our ability to think about money, our long-term well-being, our happiness, our health? And I think that's kind of the next frontier, and that's where social science and behavioral economics can help. And the good news is that if we just take those approaches, and we even look at the very simple things like money and scale and so on, there's lots of improvements. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks. Thank you.
Dan, come sit with me.
Okay.
We're all tired. It's the end of a long conference. There we go. So this is your first Skoll World Forum.
Yeah.
And you didn't need to go to such an effort, by the way, with the...
Nobody told me, yeah.
Have you done work on climate change? Because surely that is the archetypal area where we are not behaving in the rational way in which we need to. We know that the majority of people all over the world now believe that climate change is true, it's real, it's happening, and it's caused by human activities, and yet we're not moving forward. And are you working on that? And if you're not, can I get you to pay recompense for your extremely off-color joke by committing to do so right here, right now?
So first of all, it's true. Global change is the worst problem from a social science perspective, right? Think about all the things that cause apathy. It will happen to somebody else, sometime in the future, we don't see the progress, we don't see any specific person suffering, and we just don't care. Like all the things that cause apathy come together in global warming. It's a very tough problem. And of course, everything we will do is a drop in the bucket, is individually. One of my students did a very nice project on trying to understand the people who don't believe in climate change. And here is what he did. He took a group of people who, let's just call them Republicans for this, but I really mean people, I really mean it's a shortcut for people who don't believe in climate change.
Actually, that's old white conservative men, quite specifically. I think young women Republicans are just fine.
Okay.
Genuinely, they are just fine.
So, okay, let's not use that term. He took a group of those people, divided them into 3 random groups, and one group he said, how big is the problem of climate change? And those people said, not a big problem. Another group, he came and he said, the thing about climate change is if you want to solve it, you really need more government regulation. You need more rules. How big is this problem? They said, not a problem. The third group, he said, the solution to global warming, climate change, is less government intervention. More small business, support the economy. How big is the problem of climate change? Huge. So one of the finding here is what he calls solution aversion. Is that the people who seem to deny the problem don't deny the evidence. We just think, let's give them more evidence. They just don't like the solution. Imagine I told you that you have some medical condition and you just can't eat chocolate. What would you say? I don't have this problem, right? Kind of denying, the people who deny the data, I think one of the questions is, are they truly denying the data, or do they have some really deep motivation to deny the data? And so I think we need to do that. And then the other things is we do need to work on, if you think about the experiment I described to you in Kenya, when we said people don't seem to care enough. I mean, actually, you think about all of these problems, not saving and so on, it's just we don't care, we don't seem to care enough about our long-term well-being in all kinds of ways. And the question is, how can we take our long-term general understanding of what we want and bring it to short-term motivation? How do we make it easy? How do we make it actionable? How do we get pride, motivation? How do you, if you think about the coin, how do you get a daily joy from doing something that is good for you in the long term? That's the key.
Good. Well, I'd love to know that you're doing more work on it, and perhaps we can speak further about that. And my final question, you're familiar with Alice in Wonderland, which I chose for its fantastic, absurdist irrationality. Which character from Alice in Wonderland do you most relate to?
Maybe the Mad Hatter.
I think you're a bit Cheshire Cat. I feel like long after you've gone, this smile will still be here. Dan,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, and they're back. The lights are down, the lights are up. So I wanted to say something directly to Jeff Skoll, because he may be watching on the live cast. I don't know. I hope he's not watching on the live cast, because I think it's about 4 a.m. Where he is. But I just have this feeling that he may well be. So I just wanted to say to Jeff, good morning. Thank you for another incredible Skoll World Forum. And please get some really well-deserved rest. And yes, a huge round of applause for Jeff Skoll. And my final task is to hand you back over to your MC, Stephan Chambers. Please give him a huge round of applause. He is truly the host with the most, and my very, very dear friend, Stephan.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Dan. Those of you who've done this kind of thing will know that back there you can't hear, so they give you headphones. So when they moved down here, someone came and took my headphones away. So I have no idea what was said for the last 5 minutes. But I did catch one thing before that happened, which was the 20% plus loss aversion thing. And I did ask him not to say that because my daughters are in the room, and it's what we non-economists call inflationary. So I'm back here to close off this extraordinary event. And I wanted to start with a very personal debt of gratitude to you, to this community and to this movement. And to thank you for building it, for developing it, for having invented it, and for having supported me over the last 15 years of creating this forum, and for laughing at my hair, listening to my introductions. I could go on, but I won't. We began our forum with poetry, and we're going to end with music. Lakou Mizik, take Haitian music to the world. Or rather, they try to. Okay? Because moving around the planet is orders of magnitude harder for them than it is for me. Only one of the Lakou Mizik band made it through the tangle of visa awfulness to get to the UK in time for our evening. 8 of his colleagues were sent from Haiti to the Dominican Republic. They spent 4 days there. They went back to Haiti. Their passports went to Jamaica. And they didn't get here. They may also be watching in live stream. Okay? And if they are, send them our love, please, those people who didn't make it. So rather amazingly, and some of you will guess how this story ends, rather than accept this unjust equilibrium, Aloe Black's band from yesterday has agreed to join forces with Lakou Mizik and Steve Valcourt to perform for us today. Somebody said, wow. Thank you. That's partnership. That's social entrepreneurship. Thank you all for making better things closer. Lunch, the new dimension in testimony, project, virtual reality, films await you at Said. Travel safely. See you next year. Enjoy the music. And thank you.
Lakou Mizik is a musical collective from Port-au-Prince. Formed in 2010 after the devastating earthquake struck Haiti, the group celebrates their nation's vibrant music and history and honors the healing spirit of their collective culture.
Je pense que Haïti est un pays très riche culturellement.
Lakou Mizik mixes socially conscious lyrics with vaudou, rap, and roots music for a soulful blend that reflects African, French, Caribbean, and U.S. influences, but is 100% Haitian. The multi-generational collective's members range in age from late 60s to early 20s, representing Haitians from all different walks of life.
C'est la moine l'ombre croyant te forme tourner.
Le entendez ancien musique nèg ça, plaque musique c'est nèg ça ouais, que un travail musical et qui était on va extraordinaire. Et pour génération ça et que mission c'était pour nous mêmes pour te achever.
Gardez des pimbiti, mais pourquoi jamais moi, côté absent grand goût tourné, condamné, sous clou la misère. La taille, n'importe qui j'en sais pas, pis mal. Aïe aïe aïe.
La cour, c'est une tradition, anciens ancêtres nous qui étaient conservés dans la position ça, donc nous toujours gardé comme un souvenir. Donc là tout, et loi habité là.
Le message que nous portons à l'extérieur là, c'est richesse culture qui l'a livrée à faut qu'à découvrir.
Lakou Mizik prend tout ça mon nouveau jeté pour faire paraître belle devant tout le monde. Moi c'est l'ordre de Lakou Mizik, c'est comme si tu dit Haïti son Lakou Mizik.
Haïtien, américain, français. Musique pour nous exprimer nous contre toute injustice, contre toute immoralité, contre toute violence. Jeunes chanteurs, musiciens, et qui toujours lutter pour changer le visage du pays, pour changer la situation à travers la musique.
Mais ça qu'a fait pour le monde, mais ça pas les vrais, n'a poulé, à nous sauver le monde. À jamais sous, mais au bomboué, nous va connaître sous,
pays a des droits, des croyances par eux. Mais c'est qui gens pour utiliser croyance ça dans le sens positif pour le pays. C'est Haïti avant tout parce que c'est la mienne, c'est la nous de madame, c'est la nous petite, c'est nous c'est haïtiens.
Samba yo prend parler. Samba yo prend parler dans la cour, samba relé. Woy woy, woy woy. Samba yo prend parler dans la cour. Samba yo prend parler. Samba yo prend parler dans la cour, samba relé. Woy woy, woy woy. Samba yo prend parler dans la cour. Samba yo prend parler dans la cour, samba relé. Aux anges guinéens, à go, à tout on si a do guesan, marasa do sudosa, domble, jam, douvan, vaudou, qui marche alada, à tout on en chant guinéen. Abo, Dieu loyaux, farewell loyaux, dis farewell loyaux, farewell loyaux. My name is Steve. I'm come from Haiti in the name of Lakou Mizik. Usually we have to be 8 on stage, but unfortunately the band had a problem, the visa problem. We could not get here, and I'm so sad that the whole band is not there to bring you the real big taste of what Haiti is all about. But at the same time, we here with a bunch of brothers from here, UK, so to mix UK to Haiti, I guess it's a good thing. Speaking of the power of proximity, I guess music brings people together, and this is a really good thing. Thank you. Maman voye m'pese café En arrivant moi sous portail un gendarme arrêté moi Maman voye m'pese café En arrivant moi sous portail un gendarme arrêté Mes amis, ça m'a dit la caille, les m'arrivé. Ouh, oh, et wa, ça m'a dit la caille, les m'arrivé. Maman m'bral calé, ça m'a dit la caille, les m'arrivé. Ça m'bral dit la caille, moi, ça m'bral dit la caille, et wa. Papa m'obtient l'argent café l'eau. Boss de rosier ou c'est celle c'est moi qui a fait papa m'connait qui j'en ça s'est passé. Chaudière monté comme Grèce yaptano. Moi pas l'hôtel pour café maman qui gagne sous grand chemin. Mes amis, ça m'a dit la caille, les m'arrivé. Ça m'a dit la caille. Moi dis maman bral calé, papa bral calé. Ça bral dit la caille, les m'arrivé. Ça bral dit maman ouais, ça bral dit les bas. Moi dis ou yon pèse café qui baille qu'est cassé. Grand moun mwen voye m'pa wè raison pour m'pa aller. La fou bon ba portail, la jouette la compliqué. Voisin yon tire pied mes amis impété. Pas jou presque cassé, bon frère maman piqué. C'est lui qui voye m'acheter en vérité pas qu'amuser. Des rosiers qui t'a passé, c'est lui celle qui a témoigné. Les amis et des brûlés, s'il vous plaît. Des rosiers, oh, hey wa. Let's bring some heat from Haiti. Boss de rosier vient raconter mots. Moi pas connaît devant porte l'état comment gendarme arrêté là. Chaudière descendit fait gailler Mon chef j'écoute moi va jou casser m'bral compte qui ça passé mes amis ça m'a dit la caille les m'arrivé ça m'bral dit maman Maman m'bral calem, papa m'bral calem, oh, ça m'a dit la caille, les m'arrivé, ça m'bral dit oh, oh. Des rosiers, oh, hey wa. Des rosiers, oh, hey wa. Des rosiers, oh, hey wa. Ça m'bral dit en d'un bâti, moins des rosiers, oh, hey wa. Ça m'bral dit Lakou Mizik. Des rosiers, oh, hey wa. Thank you. Merci. In Haiti, we say merci for thank you. Merci. Thank you. We definitely need more, more bridges, not walls. And this song said, every time the conga is playing, our strength just doubled. In Haiti, everything we do it with music. When we wake up in the morning, we're mumbling something. And then in the afternoon, we're mumbling or singing something together. Brings the family together. And we will realize that every time the tambour, the conga is playing, our strength is doubling. And Aibobo means blessing. So anytime I say Aibobo, that's been blessing and thank you for everything. Aibobo laka laka ye. Aibobo toi baguette toi legede. Aibobo laka laka ye. Aibobo toi baguette toi legede. Côté le passé, le fait tout semble vibrer. En dans entrailles, nous l'y démérer. Côté le frappé, le fait tout le monde danser. Avec nous te chanter liberté. Toute nature a te transformé. Sous tête orteils, nous tape danser. Tamboun frappé, garçon pas campé, non. Tout le monde net connaît, c'est haïtien nous yé. Dis aïe bobo, hey, tamboun frappé, force nous doubler. Maman tamboun liberté, tamboun frappé, force nous doubler. Toi tamboun montaï jaé, tamboun frappé. Aïe bobo laka laka ye, laka ye. Aïe bobo toi baguette toi legede. Aïe bobo laka laka ye, laka ye. Samba chante oh. Aïe bobo toi baguette toi legede. Esprit on t'a pral interpellé. Dis des salines, nous a défilé. Non pas qu'un temps pour personnalité. Bajou non cafou force nous doubler. Nous tout compte qui est nous yé. On pile maman ak papa liberté. Depuis ou proche, wap tout collé. Tant de frères moins. Parce que tant pour frapper. Aïe bobo. Force nous doubler. Maman tambour liberté. Tambour frappé, force nous doubler. Toi tambour montaï jaye. Tambour frappé, force nous doubler. Kon Lakou soukri, ou pas kon Lakou bajo. Ou pas ka jwen nou, ou pas kon route pou al souvenance, ou pas kon pik makaya. Ou pas ka jwen nou non, ou pas jam gon jete de l'eau non, ou pas di aïe bobo non. Di pyo pas jam pilon Lakou a pran pos dans se vodou. Aïe 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 aïe. Ago si, ago la, force nous doubler. Ago si m'di ago la, force nous doubler. M'di depuis Haïti nous saute comme ça oh. Nous sortis en Afrique jou comme ça oh. Nous vini juste UK tout comme ça oh. M'di ago si, ago la. Haiti already. Make some noise for Haiti. Hi, Bobo. Diago, Diago la. Diago, Diago la. Diago, Diago la. Diago, Diago. Thank you. Hi, Bobo. Let me hear it. Hi, Bobo. Great. Back in Haiti, that last song is going to bring the culture of Haiti to you. They call it rah-rah style. It's kind of a cornet, one-horn cornet, with a tambour walking on the street, and then thousands of people behind the band walking. They call it rah-rah, and it's mostly before Carnival and then the Carnival. So you feel free to dance and join us. Thank you very much. Où le tambour a pour moi? Où le tambour a pour moi? Adieu, adieu, il se fatigue tendez. Moi dis levez madame, faut lever madame, levez, levez. Moi dis levez madame, ou mettre lever madame, oh, levez, levez. Moi dis madame, n'a grillé mon coup café, dis garde la cour à pour vin connaît l'ambiaye, ou escouade yo ka rassembler, oh, mes amis, oh. Gardons la pour maman, gardons compas maman, gardons plaisir maman. Comme ça nous chaque après un bon go tête café. Avant escouade là lui même lui démarrer. Ça pas empêcher nous commander. Où les tambours à pour yo. Où les tambours à pour yo. Adje, adje, il soit si beau, attendez. Canan, il soit si beau. Il soit si beau, tendez à Dieu. Quand il soit si beau. Il soit si beau à Dieu, maman. Quand il soit si beau. Il soit si beau à Dieu, bon Dieu. Quand il soit si beau. Fin passé, jardin yo même retate yo pas planté. Qui gentil moun yo pral manger. La jeunesse même rete des bras croisés. Mais dit pays nan ton reli pas passé. Dit nan qui sa pays nan pralier. Où le tambour a pour moi. Où le tambour a pour moi. Adje, adje, il se fatigue, attendez. Quand il se fatigue. Il se fatigue, adje, bouge. Il se fatigue. Il se fatigue, maman, moi. Quand il se fatigue. Il se fatigue, adje, bouge. Quand il se fatigue. Thank you, UK. Aïe bobo. Aïe bobo. Thank you very much.